Hey guys, Matt and Jacob from Evolve Fitness, and today we're going to talk about supplements. Now this is a subject that everyone knows a little bit about, and because they know a little bit it kind of gets exacerbated, but we just want to clean up some of the misconceptions in a way of putting it. So first of all, like, we haven't even discussed this yet, so this is kind of off the cuff. Pre-workout?
Not for me.
Not for me?
No.
Why not?
So basically, coming from my background in like science and a bit of elite sport and things like that, basically pre-workouts just flat out no, because you're pretty hard done by to try and find a pre-workout that doesn't have something that's banned by ASADA or that has like a legal substance. Whether it says it or not, there's that many that don't state, because they don't actually have to state things that are in there, or there's about 50 names for the same thing. And unless you know every, I don't know, like variant of that one substance, it's pretty easy to get caught out. And if you get tested, so if you're in any sort of sport that gets tested, any sort of competition that you can get drug tested for, it's very easy to have something show up. And so from my point of view, that was straight out no. On top of that, just the health side of things, I know a lot of people who have had heart scares or like had anxiety attacks and things like that because their heart's just gone crazy because they've had too much, or there's been, they look at it and they go, okay, caffeine, there's 200 milligrams, which is 2 cups of coffee.
Some of them go up to like 500.
That's right. But that's the thing. Sometimes people don't know how to read the stuff on the back properly, and it might say 200 milligrams per half scoop, but people don't read that and they put a scoop in. Then it's 400 milligrams, or they go, it'll say, start light, blah, 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 but people put some in, not realizing that, yes, it says caffeine, but then it says blah, blah, blah extract, which is also a type of caffeine, but not direct caffeine.
That's very true.
This blah, blah, blah root, like a lot of natural caffeines and things like that, or things that are stimulants that react with the body as well. So you've got the 200 straight caffeine, but then you've got this, so you've actually got an extra
ridiculous amount of caffeine
on top. So, and yeah, it messes with the body. So
absolutely. And for me, like the whole adrenal fatigue, I know it's not a recognised thing, but like everyone kind of knows what it is. Adrenal fatigue. If you're getting something that's permanently stimulating your adrenaline, you literally, it's like permanently stimulating your insulin, permanently stimulating anything. It's detrimental in the long run. So like you could be alright, sort of like a good hit, better performance initially, but when you keep doing it over a long period of time, it's going to strain your adrenal glands. And that's can lead to chronic fatigue. So if you get to the point where you need a coffee or you need the pre-workout, your adrenals aren't functioning properly. Something's happening that's compensating for your need to stimulate the adrenaline all the time. People can become addicted to it. But I think also from the mental side of things is that what if you don't have it? Like people, they do their workout, they get up, they have their pre-workout, they buzz their way through it. But A, your mental cognition isn't as good, so you're more at risk of injuring yourself. But also, what if you have that day without it? Now you're lethargic, now you don't feel good, and you go, oh, I need this. And you're kind of reliant to get your motivation from an external force.
It definitely is a placebo effect. So like placebo effect, for anyone who doesn't know, like sort of, it makes you feel something without actually giving it to you. So, it makes you think you need it, and without it, like you just said, you go, I can't do what I can if I have it. Yeah. When you can, but you think you can't, so then you don't.
And it kind of numbs you, right? You're doing a movement and you're just so off your head and buzzing. I don't like it, especially if you're someone who has anxiety. Big no-no, caffeine in general, but like especially very high caffeine, it will spike anxiety massively. So it actually starts off on a lot of people that never experienced it. They have something like that and they can feel that horrible feel, right?
I know a lot of people that have had, they get palpitations, but they become more noticeable when you're on things like that, obviously, and then they all of a sudden feel it and they go, oh, something's going on with my heart or with something's wrong, and then they freak out, and then obviously that doesn't exactly help because then you release more adrenaline, and anyway, a slippery slope there.
Isn't it? I find that when people constantly say you need a pre-workout, why? The real question is why? Why do you need it? The body is made to be energetic, it's made to perform. The question is why, and 9 times out of 10 it's inflammation in the diet, it's inflammatory effects in the body, and water retention. When that happens, you become more lethargic, lethargy comes up, and so the actual underlying problem is sort your diet out. Once you sort your diet out, inflammation, water retention comes down, your energy comes up, and you should wake up wanting to. Maybe your sleep's rubbish, and you can't compensate and put that band-aid over constantly, have bad sleep, or have a bad diet and just buzz yourself through the workout. Even though you might cause the adaptation of the muscle to get bigger or something, you could look bigger, you look stronger, whatever you're going for, your health, which is the most important, could be a detriment from it. Right?
Two other points that like stand out to me is one, a lot of people love it because it gives them pumps, and that's because they put
nitrous
nitric oxide, other things like different variants that all obviously stimulate the vasodilation, so opening up of the arteries, more blood goes into the muscle, gives you a bigger pump temporarily, only temporarily, but everyone loves the pump, so that
guy loves the pump.
And so that's like one thing, and the other thing is you got to remember it's a diminishing return, just like coffee, just like anything else. So there's powerlifters like on comp day when they have their 3 lifts, they got the bench, the squat, and the deadlift. Through that, obviously some of them like can have up to almost 1,000 milligrams in a whole.
And smelling salts. And
like you know, it's crazy. Like, and for anyone who doesn't know what diminishing returns is, it sort of means, you know, if you had a small coffee in the morning, you need to have a medium coffee at lunch to get the same effect because your body adjusts to what you just had, and then you need a large one in the afternoon to get the same effect. So you need to keep increasing that dosage. It's the same with your body as it adjusts to the level of the pre-workout you're having. You need to have more and more, and that's when you start to get to those dangerous levels. Might not feel dangerous at the time because your body's adjusted, but then you're going to get to a stage where your body goes, that's too much, and it freaks out and something happens.
100%. It's the same with everything, you know, like it becomes desensitized across the board. Even your training, you do resensitization because you go through that. So I think we're pretty unanimous on pre-workout. I mean, when would it be good? It would be good if you absolutely 100% had to do 100-meter sprint. Like it was absolute competition day, something like that. So if you do have to take it, it's more for an athlete that has the absolute form on the day. If you were to give it a place, would you say that? Because like for the everyday person using every day, big.
The only thing would be it'd have to be a non-legislative.
Yeah, exactly.
Because banned substances. So for me, coffee's the alternative. Like for myself and for a lot of people I know and a lot of athletes that I've worked with, coffee's the alternative because it's natural. You're not going to get done provided you don't have too much, because you can always get done for having too much of a caffeine stimulus regardless of what it is. But if you have it in a normal dosage, like have a large coffee, double shot, whatever, like that's not enough to put you over the line to get get
smack on the wrist.
Basically get in trouble in a comp. So.
Okay, so that's us. That's pre-workout. So pre-workout done. Protein. Let's say protein. So my view on this with protein is it absolutely has its place. So like say for example, a bodybuilder generally goes for about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That is hard to eat. And so like say if they've maxed out their calories and like maxed out their carbs, their fats, and they need to top up the protein, that's when it starts coming in. That's when it's a good thing. For the average person that isn't doing training that's directly just breaking down muscle fiber, like resistance training, like bodybuilding, if you're coming in and you're doing long distance running, or even set HIIT circuits, you can get that from food. Along with that, you're getting that extra nutrition. But people will think, as soon as they start training, bang, I need to go out and eat protein. And that is a total misconception and absolutely become more popularized from bodybuilding. So bodybuilders, yes, it really, really helps them to stop eating all day, every day. Plus, you've got more of a thermogenic effect, right? Small, it's not going to make a big deal. It's not like you eat more protein and suddenly you're going to burn more. It has a larger thermogenic effect. It is theoretically more satiating, but it's still a caloric intake that's to play with that. What's your standard protein?
Definitely some variants of protein, yes, definitely. So I think it has its place. I use it, I recommend it to a lot of people depending on their level of training and the amount of training.
And what they're training.
Yeah, so like majority of athletes I've ever trained, yes, 100%. Like again, got to look at the banned substances, all that sort of stuff. But as a general rule, the WPI, so whey protein isolate, basically you got the different levels. So whey protein concentrate means it's thicker, not as refined, more milk solids in it, byproducts that aren't exactly good for the body, which creates more inflammation.
Yep.
But as you get more refined down, those WPIs that are really natural are definitely a goer.
Absolutely.
And I agree with using them. Like I said, I use them.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, if you're just an everyday person that's not doing heaps of training, you do a bit to keep healthy in that, but you probably don't need it if you've got a good diet. But the thing is, a lot of people don't have the good diet, so they compensate with the protein.
And that's just like the whole thing with the what we were saying before. Diet is the staple. You have to have diet. Diet affects your health more than anything. If someone could have a great diet, a great training regime, I'd choose the great diet over that 100% every single time, because you can look fit and healthy and be like dying inside, you know. When it comes to different types of proteins as well, like they've shown now that pea protein is one of the most easily or the most digestible and absorbable to humans. Doesn't taste as good, but and stuff like casein protein. Casein coagulates in the stomach. It's basically just like a dirty, hard to digest protein. It's not. They say it's longer digestible. Yeah, it's longer digestible because your body finds it hard to break down. So you know, there's other things that sort of.
One thing that's a problem with that too is your body doesn't actually, if you have that, a lot of people say take that before bed, stop you from losing weight, you get that slow release so you're recovering overnight, but it's actually detrimental to your recovery because your body doesn't switch off and recover. Absolutely. It doesn't go to sleep, so your body's still digesting all night, your body's still working, Absolutely. And then you wake up and then your body's got to go again, it hasn't rested yet. So you actually, like everyone who says, oh, you get to, while you rest, you're building and recovering. Yeah. You're not, because your body doesn't recover.
Yeah.
And so it's better to have something before, like a bit, say 6 o'clock at night, give those few hours for the body to break it down, and then you go to bed and let the body switch off and recover. Absolutely. Be fresher for the next day and better off for it in the long run.
Because if you've met those protein requirements, it's not like we used to think that you hit that and then 2 hours later it's all just disappears. It disappears in your body. It's just like science has moved on since then. We've figured out a lot more. We've realised that it's not as black and white as Absolutely. Every 2 hours absorb this.
That's right. I had one of my old lecturers actually say to me when I was at uni, he, in a practical sense, he said, you know, sometimes people do comps and games and things, and they don't finish till 10 o'clock at night. You're not going to tell them to go eat a steak or going up like this and that before they go to bed at 12 at night. Yeah. You know, like he said, they let them get their sleep, they're better off for it. As soon as they wake up, give them a really high protein meal. Yeah. And he said that their body will be in a starved state wanting it. Yeah. Take all the protein in then, and they've actually had a better rest overnight because of it.
Well, I think the key thing you said there is that starved state or that fasted state when you're most insulin sensitive, so you're going to get the most absorption anyway. Plus your HGHs have a chance to be higher. Your human growth hormone, which is secreted from your pituitary gland when you're in a fasted state. It's a hormonal release to preserve lean mass. So if you're permanently in a fed state, you don't go into that state, plus there's autophagy, that's a totally different subject. But when you go in that fasted state, that's when your pituitary gland releases the HGH to preserve lean mass, which is an anabolic hormone, although it's proven it's not big enough to be like that, but it will preserve the lean mass, make you more insulin sensitive so you can actually get the absorption when you do. So I think, cool. Creatine.
Creatine, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I went down to Perth for uni, and we had a lady come in, her specialisation was supplements, and she, I was under the impression that creatine was okay, but you had to cycle it, you know, 4 weeks on or 6 weeks on, go off for 4 weeks, back on, and all that. And obviously there's the things of, it helps you put weight on because of the retention of water and different things and all this other stuff, but I was under that impression. She said, no, she's taken it every day for 3 years, and I said, oh, doesn't it affect you? She's, she's done a PhD on it and everything like that, and she said there is no known unhealthy side effects. It actually helps cognition, so it helps your brain for fuel, makes you more aware, helps with obviously without getting too scientific, the ATP-CP system. Yeah. So like that explosive, you know, it's not a magic wand. You're not going to have it and then magically do 10 times heavier or 10 more reps or anything, but it'll help you grind out 1 or 2, and that's that 1 or 2 reps at the end when you're in that stress, you're really hurting.
The one
that's
really,
where you're really building. Yeah, you're building
absolutely.
10 times more than your first rep.
Yeah. So it's funny because that, as you said before, with creatine is the most studied supplement, right?
Absolutely, most scientific backed.
Absolutely. So creatine's a big. Yeah, it's just like magnesium, stuff like that. Everyone's deficient magnesium, and it should be on that.
Yeah, no, it's good for baseball. Like she said herself that it's good for everybody. Like whether you're taking it for your brain, just to help you be more aware and fuel the brain, or whether you're doing it for athletic purposes. The only time you've got to be careful is if you're in a sport or something like that where you're worried about weight classes.
Yeah.
If you only just went on it before your thing, like your competition, then it's gonna maybe bump you up to the next weight. So you don't want it. But if you've been on it for a long time and you just cycle off a little bit, or you're just maintaining, then it's fine.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so.
Sweet. Creatine.
Yep.
What?
Glutamine.
Glutamine. That's good for recovery.
Yeah.
Very good for recovery. It's good because like if I'm not mistaken, it's one of the most abundant things in the body, but it's also one of the most depleted through physical exercise, and it's got a big correlation with fatigue and recovery. So
yes.
Glutamine really ups your recovery rate and knocks the soreness out of you, right?
Yeah, so
take glutamine if you're sore. And
helps with the inflammation, helps with digestion and your stomach as well. So like, you know, when you're doing a lot of high intensity stuff and all that, it can become a bit sort of volatile in there every now and then. It definitely helps to calm the stomach, help absorption of nutrients, but obviously the overall recovery, like, you know, muscle soreness as you alluded to, and just helping you not to feel so depleted the next day after a big session the day before. So back up that training. Long term, obviously, then you can build more and more because you can train harder. So,
yeah, so glutamine.
Yeah,
yes.
that's a yes.
BCAAs.
Yeah, at times, like in the right sort of environment, I guess. I wouldn't take it if I was doing nothing. I wouldn't take it if I was just an everyday Joe that's not doing a lot of exercise.
Yeah.
Again, what we said before, diet. If you got a great diet and you're not doing high levels of exercise, you don't need it.
No.
If you're doing high levels of exercise or your diet is pretty poor, one or the other, you probably need
Absolutely. So BCA is basically branched chain amino acids, and it's a link of different aminos and stuff like. A lot of people do it for leucine, right? So leucine is one of the most anabolic hormones. You need it for building muscle and such. But once again, a really good diet should be adequate. If you're not training, you don't need to be on it. If you're low-level training, if you're going for walks and stuff like that, you don't need to be on it. If you're starting to do high-level HIIT training, or you're an athlete, or you're a bodybuilder, something like that, then it's a good thing, right?
Then you're probably not getting enough of the signaling, you know, enough of the anabolic signaling, and probably not getting enough of those nutrients, in particular those amino acids. You know, out there.
Especially if you're, say, vegan.
Absolutely. There's a lot of different variants. You go any supplement store, you'll see 50 different ones. There's EAAs, which are essential amino acids. You know, there's branched chain amino acids, all these different ones. The main thing is if you flick it over and you see some of those key ones, like you could literally look up on Google what are the key amino acids you need, and just flick over any one in the shop, and provided it's got those few, they're the ones you need. So branched chain amino acids can be broken down into essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. Non-essential amino acids are the ones we can produce. The essential amino acids are the ones we need to bring in from an external source. So a lot of times that's where you'll lack in those ones if you don't have a good diet, and they're the ones that a lot of times people will be low in because no one, or not many people have a well-rounded diet all the time. So to especially athletes, when they've got the ones they can produce, but those ones they can't, and they're using up those all the time. If they're not getting enough in through those food sources, then you know it's going to start affecting your performance. So that's the difference.
And the key thing for that is using up. Like that's why we say that if you're not an athlete, you're not training all the time, you don't need it because you're probably not using those essentials.
And recently, some of the things I've seen is that there's these plateaus that have been brought up in a couple of studies recently. I mean, I've only seen a couple of them saying this, but they're sort of said that there's plateaus, so you only need to get to a certain amount. After that, you're getting very little bang for your buck. You know, you're having 100 grams, but you're getting 1% increase, whereas before that plateau, for every 100 grams, you might get 10% increase or something. You know, like that's obviously very hypothetical numbers there, but just to give you a picture, like they're saying that once you get to a certain amount, you don't really need any more than that. It's not going to, it's not going to help. It's just,
So they're like the main wrap-up of supplements that people sort of get thrown around. This is Jacob. is PTs over at Evolve. Come down to us if you're in Darwin, have a chat if you want any advice, and get in contact with Jacob if you want any advice or any PT training. And if you're not in Darwin, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.